Now that we learned some new tricks regarding how we can send mails, let's use that new knowledge to improve our authentication features. And in general, let's improve our security or the authentication related things in our app. For example, let's also work on ensuring that only users who created a post can edit it. But let's start with resetting passwords. To be precise, in this module, we'll start with resetting passwords, but then we'll have a look at authorization, which is that part I just talked about with ensuring that you can only edit and delete what you created. So let's start with resetting passwords. Obviously, that's a common thing you need to do in applications. People forget passwords, you want to offer them a way of resetting them. For that, we will need a new view and some new routes. Let's start with the view maybe. So in the auth folder, I'll add a reset EJS file. You can name it however you want. You could name it password reset EJS, of course. And I'll copy my login EJS code, paste it in there, but of course adjust it a little bit. I'll still leave the error message here because eventually I might display one. I don't want the password field here, but I need the CSRF token, and I need the email field because I want users to enter an email for which they want to reset the password. Then here I'll label this button reset password like this. So now we have that reset EJS view. Let's now go to the auth controller file and add some new actions to it. So I'll export a new action which I'll name get reset that should simply render that reset page. So here we have the well-known function with the 3 arguments. And in there, I'll use response render and we'll render a page just as we did it many times before. So I'll just copy that from up here to type less. Render a page. Auth reset is the view path. Here, the path in the URL will be just /reset, let's say. Title of the page could be reset password. Now, regarding the error message, I'll also copy that. This code here, where I extract any message that might exist and pass it to the view. And with that, we got the controller action. Let's now create a fitting route. In the auth routes file, here, I will add a new get route to /reset. And use auth controller get reset here. This is the route I want to load when we request a password reset. With that, we just need a way to reach that route, and that would be on the login page, of course. There, below the form, we want to offer a reset password link. So here I'll add a new link, which leads to /reset, where I say reset password, like that. Now let's also wrap that in some div. And give this div a class of centered. This is a class I defined earlier in the course. Now back on the login page, if we reload it, we have reset password here. Now you can work on the styling if you want. The main thing is if I click on it, I'm taken to my reset password page. Now in here, the idea would be that you enter a password and then you receive an email with a password reset link. Now let's start working on that in the next lectures. So we want to be able to enter an email address here and then receive an email with a link that allows us to reset the password. Now, for that, we need to first of all create a unique token that also has some expiry date, which we will store in our database so that the link which we then click includes that token and we can verify that the user did get that link from us. Because if we just, let the user now change that password, we got no security mechanism in place. So we need that token to put it into the email we're about to send to only let users change the password through the email that contains that token. That's an additional security mechanism. Now let's work on that token creation then. For that, first of all, I'll export a new action in my auth controller. That will be post reset. So that will basically the action that should get triggered once we click that reset password button here. And in there, I need to generate that token. Now, Node.js has a built-in crypto library which I can use for that. So I'll name that crypto and require crypto like that. This is a library that helps us with creating secure, unique, random values and other things, but we'll need that unique, secure, random value here. So here in post reset, I'll then use that crypto library, which I stored in a constant here, and I will call random bytes to generate some random bytes. I want 32 random bytes, and this will call a callback function here. So this is the second argument, a function that will be called once it's done. There I either get an error or a buffer of these bytes. Now if I have an error here, then I want to redirect back to, let's say, reset, and we could flash an error message here if we wanted to. I'll also log the error so that we can debug it. But if we make it past this check, we do have a valid buffer, and then we can generate a token from that buffer simply by using buffer to string. And there we just need to pass hex because that buffer will store hexadecimal values, and this is information toString needs to convert hexadecimal values to normal ASCII characters. So then we'll have a token. Now that token should get stored in the database, and it should get stored on the user object because it belongs to that user. So let's first of all go to our user model, and there I'll add two new fields. I'll add a reset token, and I'll just assign a type of string here. Now important, this is not required because not always this token will be there, only if we requested a reset. And we'll have a reset token expiration, or however you want to name it, and that will be of type date. And now I want to store that token on the user which we plan to reset. So first of all, I need to find that user in the database, and I'll use the Mongoose user model for that to find one user where the email matches the email we're trying to reset. And that email which we're trying to reset can be extracted from the request body email field. Because on our reset view here, we do have that email field. By the way, important, the action here should be /reset to reach the right route. But with that, this is prepared. And now in our controller, I'm finding a user who has this email. Now let's add then and catch, handle any potential error we might get by logging it for now. And then in then, we should get a user or undefined if that user does not exist. So in here, I want to check if we don't have a user. If we don't have a user, then I will flash a message, as you learned it in the authentication module, onto the error key. No account with that email found, or whatever message you want to show. And then here I'll return a redirect to /reset. If we make it past this if check, then we are looking for an email address that is stored in the database. And now for that user which I retrieved for that email address, I want to set the reset token equal to the token which I generated. And I will set the reset token expiration equal to date now, which gives me the current date and time, plus 1 hour. And this now has to be expressed in milliseconds. So you should use 3,600,000 milliseconds. This will be 1 hour. So now I'm assigning these two fields, and we can call user save to then update our user in the database. Let's return this so that we can now chain another then call here, another then block, which will execute this function when user save succeeds. So at this point of time, we know that the updated user was stored in the database, and now we want to send that token reset email. Now, I showed you how to send emails in the last lecture, in the last module, I mean. So make sure you go through that, because I will now use that transporter again, which I created there, the node mailer transporter, which we use for sending email. And I will send an email to the email of the user which we found, so to user email, to request body email, we can say. So to the email we're requesting the reset for. The subject could be password reset. And now in the HTML code, I'll use a next-gen feature, backticks, which allows me to write multi-line strings, which makes it a bit easier to read. I'll add a paragraph where I say, you requested a password reset, So users should be worried if they get that. If they did not, click this link to set a new password. And you could include more information like the fact that this is only valid for 1 hour. Now this link here, this will be an anchor tag leading at some URL. And that URL will be, in our case here, localhost 3000. And then let's say reset, and then the token which we have. Now, since I'm using this backtick syntax, I can dynamically embed values with a special syntax where I use $ curly braces, and now I can inject variables and their values into this string, and the values of the variables will be placed in that string. So here I can now output that token which we generated here. So now I'm placing that in the URL because that token is then what we'll later look for in the database to confirm that this link was sent by us, because only we know the token. So this will send an email, and at the same time, I will redirect back to the starting page, let's say, because the next instructions are received in the email, of course. Now, let's try this out in the next lecture. So let's give this a try, this reset mechanism. And for that, we first of all need to make sure that our newly added controller actions can be reached. So we added a get reset route. Now we also need to add a post reset route so that this reset password button actually works. So let's add this route and execute post reset, that action we worked on. And with that, on the reset password page, let's first of all try out an incorrect URL, email, one which does not exist in the database. And we get this message, which is great. Now use a real email which you used for signing up and click reset password. Now you should be redirected back. And if you check your emails, there you should have a password reset email with a link. If you click that link, you should end up on a page not found error, but you will see that we're on reset and then some token. And that token can also be seen in your user collection here. This is the password reset token which we stored. So now we just need to add some logic to add this route, extract that token, validate whether we have a user for that token, and then offer a form that allows the user to set a new password. Let's work on that next. So we got a token. Let's now add a form which allows the user to enter a new password. And for that, I will go into my views folder again, the auth folder there, new password.ejs, or however you want to name this. And there I'll use my login.ejs page, copy all that content into here. And then let's just maybe grab our password field here, remove the email for sure. You can't add a new email. Renable the button to update password. You need the CSRF token. The action here should be maybe new password, whatever you want. A post request to new password. Reset password does not make any sense here, so let's remove that link. And now we got a prepared new password page. Now we want to load that, so we need a controller action. Exports get new password maybe, where we again have the free arguments we all know and love. And in there, let's render a view. So I'll just copy that res render method, and I want to render my auth new dash password view. Path is new password, and here the title can be new password. I also will add my code for extracting a potential error message if I should work with one. So now I have my get new password action. Obviously, I don't just want to render that view here though. I also want to check whether I find a user for that token which I receive here, because this will be the page we load for this page where we do have a token in the URL. So let's retrieve that token first of all by request from request params token, let's say. We'll need to add a route later that encodes the token in a token field in our parameters. And then I'll find one user where this token fits. Now, since our tokens are generated in a random, non-guessable way, you can't also enter random tokens and start editing passwords of other users. And even if you could, you would not know the fitting email addresses. So here I'll find a token with the reset token field, which we added here, reset token. So I'm looking for reset token being equal to the token I have here. And we want to make sure that it's still valid from a date perspective, so that the document I find does not just fulfill this criteria, but another one too. I add more criteria with a comma. That the reset token expiration is still, higher than the current date. For that, I can use a special operator wrapped in curly braces. $GT stands for greater than, and I can simply compare if it's greater than now, so the current date and time. Only if the token matches and the token expiration is still greater than now, so the token expiration is in the future, only then I have the user I want to find. So here I'll add then and catch, log any errors I might be getting, and in the then block, I get the user for whom we want to reset the password. So it's here inside of that then block that I want to render my new password view, and I want to pass my user ID to that view so that I can include it in the post request where we will update the password. So here I will include user ID to string, maybe to convert it from an object ID to a real string. So now we render new password, and on the new password page, I will duplicate my hidden CSRF token field because I'll also have a user ID field now, which is also hidden, where I output that user ID I'm passing into the view. So this input is new with that hidden user ID, and it will output that user ID. And we'll need that for the post request where we want to save our new password. Okay, so with that, let's go to our routes, to the auth routes here, and let's add a new get route here, the get new password route, where I will use the get new password controller action. Now, it's not just new password, by the way, or it will not be new password at all. It will be reset, but then there will be a token. So the URL is reset, and then a dynamic parameter, the token parameter. And it has to be named token here, because in that get new password auth controller, I am looking for token in my params. So token here, which I'm looking for in request params, means I have to name it token here as well. And with that, let's go back and reload this page. And now I'm on that update password page, which is looking good. Now in the next lecture, let's add the logic to update that password. We added a page that allows us to enter a new password, the new password view here, and there we will send a post request to /new password. Now we need to add that route and controller action as a next step so that the existing user password can be replaced with the new one. So back to the auth controller. Let's add a new controller action, the post new password action, and you guessed it, which arguments we have in that function here. And then in here, what do we need to do? Well, we need to extract a new password from request body password, and that is request body password because in the new password view, I'm storing the password in a field named password. And we'll need to extract that user ID here too. So that user ID is also something. User ID is equal to request body user ID. We need that as well. I also still want to have that token because otherwise people could start entering random tokens here and still reach that page and then maybe change users on the backend by entering random user IDs in that hidden input field as well. So I want to have that token, and therefore in new password, I'll also add another hidden input field, password token, and output password token here. So that is another field. And I need to pass that token into my view. So that is something for get new password for this action. Here, I need to pass password token as a variable into the view, and it will hold the token I'm extracting from the URL here. And that is the token we originally generated. So this is now also passed, and this is now also something I can extract here, the password token. Request body password token extracted from that password token field here. Okay, so now we got these 3 pieces of information in here. Now I want to reset my user. So I will again find one user in my database, and I'll find the user where the reset token is equal to the password token, where the reset token expiration is again greater than date now, so the same logic as I did up here, and where the ID is equal to my user ID. I'll then again add then and catch, log any errors we might be facing here, and then I'll have my user that fulfills all these criteria. And then here, I want to assign a new password to the user. Now, obviously, for that, I'll again hash it, because that doesn't change. It still should be hashed. So I'll again use bcrypt hash, pass in the new password and my number of salting rounds, 12. And I will return this here, and then add another then block, the hashed password, where I can store that on the extracted user. However, the user is an argument in this function, but I need it here. To be able to access it in this function as well, I will create a new variable up there, user or reset user, and I will store user in reset user, so in that variable, because that variable is defined in this function scope, so I can use it in this and in this function, and now I can use reset user in here too. And I can use it to call reset user and set the password equal to the new hashed password. And for the reset user, I will also set reset token equal to null, and I will also set reset token expiration to null here, or not to null, let's set it to undefined. So these fields here are not required anymore. They don't need to store any values anymore. Once I'm done, I can call save here and return that. And here I'll then have my result of that save operation. And once we did save, I can now redirect the user back to the login page with that new password. You could also send another mail confirming that reset if you wanted to. And now if you save this, let's reload that password resetting page here. And let's add a new or enter a new password, click update password. And I get a page not found, which makes sense, obviously, because I have my new post route, but I need to register it as a route. I have my action here, I should say. I need to register it as a route. So in the auth.js file here, we need to add a new post request to new password and execute auth controller post new password there. That is important. Save that. Then simply go back to the page where you have that token in the URL. Enter your new password. Let's also quickly reload our users collection before we hit save and kind of memorize the value here. It ends with XYWY. And click update password. I'm on the login page. And now if I reload my users collection, that password here should change. And it does. And also the reset token and so on is gone. I also have no errors here. So it looks like password resetting was successful. We successfully assigned a new password. Now, if we try going to reset with some random token, then this will not work, and we're not doing proper error handling there. I'll have a whole module on that because we essentially failed to find a user for that token. So this also works. We can't start changing values of random tokens, of random users. So this will not work here. So we worked a lot on resetting passwords. Let's now work on authorization. And with that, I mean that not every authenticated user is allowed to do everything. A good example would be this one. I'm not logged in. Now let me log in with this user here, test@test.com. Here, I might be able to add a product and I can delete products. But right now, I can delete all products no matter if I created them or if someone else created them. And the same is true for editing them. Authorization means that I restrict the permissions of a logged in user. So every user might be able to add anything to the cart, including products created by that user. But you might not be able to delete and edit products which were not created by you. So for now, I can do that. But that's exactly what I want to work on next so that we can't do this. Now, how can we implement that? Well, when I create a new product, and let me quickly do that. Remember, I'm logged in with test@test.com. This was created by test@test.com. When I create this product here, we have it here, and we can see it in the products collection, obviously. It's linked to the user with an ID that ends with E5. And if we have a look at all our users, let me delete this one here. Then we see this is the one with E5. It is the test@test.com user. Now, if I log in with my test2 account, so test2 here, then if I go to admin products, I can also edit and delete that. And that is exactly what I want to prevent. Let's do that in the next lecture. So how can we add authorization? I want to ensure that I can't delete or edit this book with, or this product with the wrong account. Now we do have important information stored on the product. We know which user did create it. So in the end, we just want to check if the currently logged in user is the user who created that before allowing any edits to that item. And that means that on the admin controller, where we render our admin list here, get products here, I only want to render products that were created by the logged in user, because there is no sense in showing products on this page that were not created by the user, because we're in the admin section. You're not able to do anything with it if you weren't the creator. So authorization simply means we restrict the permissions. And we can do that by restricting the data we return, for example. So here, when I find products, I don't find all, but I'll add a filter. And I'll filter for products where the user ID is equal to the user ID of the currently logged in user. So user ID is equal to request user ID. ID. And keep in mind, request user exists because we do extract that user in app.js in a separate middleware. Here. There I do store the user in request user. So I know that only products which were created by that user should be retrieved. With that change, if I reload this page, I find no products for test2. But if I do log in with my other account, with test@test.com, and I go to admin products, I do find that book. So that is the first important step forward. The problem is I could theoretically still issue requests behind the scenes where I do try to delete a product which was not created by me. So more protection is needed. Let's add that next. We're restricting the amount of products we can see, and that is one great step forward, but it still doesn't mean we can't send requests somehow by creating our own pages where we still try to delete another product. So we should also add protections in our post actions, like in post edit and post delete product. There we want to check that the product I try to delete is really created by the user who's currently logged in. So in post edit product, there I might want to add a check once I found the product that should be edited, where I see if I'm allowed to edit that product. So here in the then block where I have that product fetched from the database, there I will quickly check if product user ID is not equal to request user ID. Because if it's not equal, then this means the wrong user is trying to edit this. So here, I then want to return and simply redirect back to the starting page, let's say. Because we try to do something fishy here, we don't want to continue. So all the other code will now not run. We would still go into that then block though, as you learned, because the next then block is still executed even if I do redirect here. So to circumvent this, I'll add then right after save here. So a nested then block, so to say. And now we have a protection in place that ensures that we can't start editing products that don't belong to us. To quickly check this, I'll temporarily remove my filter so that I can see all products again, and I will log in with the wrong account. So with test2. And now what we should see is that when I edit this, and I add a couple of exclamation marks and I click update, I'm redirected, but the edit wasn't saved because I essentially ended up in my extra check here and I was redirected back, but without saving the changes because this code was never executed. Now let's try the same for deleting before I re-add my filter here. For deleting, I also want to check if I'm really allowed to delete that product. And we can easily implement this by changing our deletion method here and use delete1. And there I want to delete the product where the ID is equal to the prod ID, but also where the user ID is equal to the request user ID. So both has to be true now. The product ID alone is not enough. The user ID also has to match. And therefore, even if we have a valid user ID, it will not delete this product if the user ID does not match. So if I save this, and I go to admin products with the wrong account still, and I click delete, you see, the product doesn't go anywhere. It's still there. Now let me add that filter in get products again, so that we can't even see it. And now we have the best possible setup, because now we can really only see it in the account where we are able to interact with it. So if I do log in with that valid account, there I do see it. And there, I now also should be able to edit it. Though if I try that, it fails. So let's explore what's wrong here in the next lecture. Editing fails here. And do you have an idea why it fails? It fails because of my check here. I compare the product user ID to the request user ID. Now we have a type problem again. I should convert both to a string because I'm also checking for type equality. So with this change, both converted to a string and not this strange object ID thing, with this in place, now if I log in, or if I'm logged in with the right account, now I can update this. And I can also delete this. So this now all works with the right account, so with the account who created it. But it will not work if I log in with the wrong account. Because if I log in there, so this is now the account which did not create it, I can view it on the normal pages. I can add it to my cart if I want to, but under admin products, I do not see it. And even if I would see it, I could not interact with it. In this module, we had a look at some advanced authentication-related topics. Namely, we had a look at password resetting. And there it was important to understand that you of course have to implement password resetting in a way that prevents users from resetting random user accounts. Therefore, we implemented such a short-lived password token so that it's not valid forever to reduce the chance of it being generated by some brute force attack. And therefore, our reset token is a great mechanism to identify the user for whom we want to reset the password. The token has to be generated in a way that is random, unguessable, at least in a reasonable amount of time, hence the expiration date, and unique. And in this module, we implemented a token in exactly that way. We also had a look at authorization. And authorization is all about locking down access for authenticated users. Because just because you're authenticated, you're not allowed to do everything. You might be logged in your Udemy account, but you can't edit my course because you're not the creator of the course. And that's the idea of authorization, and that is also what we did in this module, when we ensured that only users who created a product can actually view, edit, and delete it. So authorization is a crucial part of most applications, and together with authentication, which is the surrounding topic of having users in general, you can really control which visitor can do what in your web app, in your website.